Jake from One Hive here with our second episode of the mini series about base building, base design. And as always, I've got the man himself, Rex, here. Rex, what's going on, buddy?
Hey Jake, there's not much going on here. Good to have you again and make this next video for all our supporters and viewers.
You bet, man. I think we got a lot of great response. I was sort of worried because we drug it on so long. We're going to try to do better tonight, but it seemed like people really enjoyed the video, going to enjoy the series. So before we get into this, there's one thing I want to comment on. Some of the comments I got were, awesome base. This base is awesome, and I want to remind you guys again, we're not trying to show you a base to use. We're trying to show you tips and tricks and suggestions to design your own base, because there's no base we can show you or you can pull off the forums that's going to be as effective as a custom base that you've made with these key elements that people haven't seen before, they haven't got to practice on. But go ahead, Rex, get us started on this Town Hall 9. How you want to start it off?
Yeah, okay. Just we're going to follow the format we did in our last video. We can start with the newest defenses. At Town Hall 9, of course, you get the magical expo that everyone starts to worship. But it's a little bit deceiving because level 1 expo is really not that powerful of a force. It only brings out 50 damage per second. The nice thing about the expo is when you get to level 3, it's quite significant in damage. When you have an expo in your farming base, because the general populace of clashers is at Town Hall 8 or lower, the expo does give your base that scare factor, and people don't want to touch your base, especially if they're not Town Hall 9. So that's one thing to consider. But in our clan, we almost recommend to all of our brand new Town Hall 9s not to work on the expo first. It's nice to have an expo starting to build and to have it for defenses in your first clan war. But I would recommend to everyone, if they're going towards the war-centric path, to upgrade army camps, any offensive buildings, your clan castle, your spell factory, and your laboratory before you even consider building an expo.
Yeah, I would agree. I think they're a little overhyped. They can be good on, like, if they get locked onto a hero. That seems to be pretty nice because it's a constant damage stream, especially the queen. But what tends to happen more times than not is they lock onto a golem and they just don't have, especially like you said, at early levels, they just don't have that power to take out a golem, so they end up doing a whole lot of nothing. Now, they do have a lot of hit points, and it can hold troops up for a while, hogs, things like that. But I agree. I think they're a little overhyped and not as effective as a lot of people believe they are.
Yeah, and I agree with you there. It's one of the problems is, as you were saying, that level 4 golem is such a powerful force. Has so many hit points, and even when it breaks up, the little golemites, they have a ton of hit points, so the expos almost lock onto them forever. As you were saying, it is really nice if the attacker improperly deploys their queen or their heroes, and the expo happens to lock on it early, so they have to waste their ability to get rid of the lock. Yeah. However, when you're facing a good clan, that usually almost never happens.
Yeah, with proper deployment, it's going to get on that golem. Now, even against a hog attack, a hog under a heal, an expo, even at level 3, is not taking a hog out that is under heal. So they are, just like we've talked about, they've got some benefits, but don't get too hung up on the new defense. I know it's exciting to get a new defensive building like that, something you've never had before. But when you get it, just don't get too overzealous. Obviously, get them, put them in your base, but don't focus on them first. But anything else you want to say about that before we move on, Rex?
No, let's go ahead and move on to the next section that I wanted to talk about, and it's our Town Hall 9 levels. And what I mean by that is when you're coming to Town Hall 9 is such a big section of the game. I like to break it up into our clan into 3 different levels. You have your brand new or low tier Town Hall 9. You start once you start upgrading everything, your offenses and then your defenses, you move on to the mid tier of Town Hall 9. And then once everything starts getting maxed, you go to the high tier of Town Hall 9. And then there's a Town Hall 9 max. That's kind of when there's a lot of people, a lot of separation, where some will move on to Town Hall 10 and some will continue to max Town Hall 9. because there's just too many walls and too many hero levels to upgrade, so they'll stay at Town Hall 9 forever.
Yeah, coming to Town Hall 9 is almost like starting a new game. I mean, there's so much to upgrade. You've got new walls to upgrade. Even if you're max Town Hall 8, it takes you weeks just to get your new walls, defensive buildings that you get to add, a new Tesla, a new air defense, etc. Your queen. It takes you weeks just to get to max Town Hall 8 level. So there's a big discrepancy, a big difference between brand new and, like you said, mid and then upper Town Hall 9s.
Yeah, and one of the main things that you have to take into consideration when you're at these different levels are the different types of army compositions that you're prone to being attacked by. And so let's go ahead and start. When you're a new or lower Town Hall 9, what would you say is the most common army comp that you're attacked by, Jake?
What I see most of the time for a brand new Town Hall 9 is still going to be what you were running into in Town Hall 8. You're going to see dragoons and hogs. The reason being, the main one, dragoons, is because you've got that new air defense, but it's probably low level. Air defense take a long time to upgrade. So if you're brand new, even if you've got your expos and you've got them pointed up, with that real low air defense, you're going to run into some dragon attacks still. So remember that when you're building your base. All the rules that applied for Town Hall 8 to make them tough for dragons, same rules apply for Town Hall 9 when you're early on. Spread those air defense out, guard them with your high HP buildings, because you're going to run into that some.
Yeah, you're totally right, Jake. When you're a new Town Hall 9, that one level 1 expo doesn't show any damage to dragons, and so it's really easy for people to continue to dragon you, because dragons, even though they don't get a new level at Town Hall 9, loons, they're able to upgrade, and loons are such a powerful force. There's a huge gap between level 5 loons and level 6, and that's one of the first things that war-centric people upgrade. Even people who want to start farming Dark Elixir will upgrade loons pretty early on. So, like you were saying, it's really your base is really prone to drag loons, so you need to make sure you organize a base in a fashion to prevent dragon attacks or to defend well against dragon attacks. Yeah, so the other army composition that as Jake was mentioning, is a hog attack, and that's just because if someone maxes out their Town Hall 8, they have a level 4 hog, and they're usually, if they're a hogger, they love to hog already, and at Town Hall 9, between level 4 hog to level 5 hog, that's also a big jump, and level 5 hogs are one of the most powerful units in the game.
Yeah, I agree. I was just going to say the difference between level 4 and level 5 hogs, and then what you have to realize is that all of your point defense going from level 8 Town Hall 8 to Town Hall 9, you've got 3 upgrades to do. That's such a drastic difference. So someone rolling in with level 5 hogs and your level 8 point defense, man, if you don't have your bombs placed just right, they're going to roll over you.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's one of our key components that we're going to be talking about a little bit later. So keep that in mind. Once you start developing your defenses, you get into the mid and high tier Town Hall 9 levels. What are some of the army compositions that attack those types of bases, Jake?
Well, I think that's when you're going to start seeing more golem attacks. You're going to start seeing go wee wee, go wipe, go holo, all those different golem type things, because at this point your air defense is upgraded. Your queen's probably a little higher level. Those air attacks they don't produce the 3rd star. They're more looking like 2-star attacks. Having that 4th air defense really changes things if you place them correctly. So I think you're going to start seeing more ground compositions.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with you more there. So that's kind of what you need to think about when you're building your base. What you would assess your level at, and then build a layout to target each and every. It's not possible to defend against every single army composition, but you want to have a very good balance and distribute it really well to fend off multiple different attacks. And we're going to break down even further here in this video once we get to the key elements part. The other really exciting addition to Town Hall 9 is the Archer Queen. And we're going to go ahead and talk about the locations of the Archer Queen and and how the Archer Queen, can be utilized to mess up, to defend, to just absolutely wreck different Town Hall 9 attacks. Where would you place the Archer Queen?
Yeah, she's a big deal. Not just defensively, but offensively. It's sort of a game changer, especially once you start leveling her up. Really, to talk about where I like to place an Archer Queen, you've got to talk about them both together, the King and the Queen, because the way you're going to place them, there's a couple of options that you've got. One being in the core. Now, no matter where you place your King or Queen, you've got upsides and you've got downsides to it. Placing your queen in the core is great for hog attacks, things of that nature, because she's not easily taken out. Now the flip side of that coin is let's say you've got her in the core. Troops are also going to she's going to draw them into her. So if there's a golem attack, a go wee wee coming in on you, and you've got her in the core, it makes it that much easier for them to funnel their troops to the core. So she will draw those troops in. They drop a jump spell and they aggro onto the queen. They're going straight for her, and once she's dead, voila, they funnel their troops to the core.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So let's say instead of this expo, the queen was right here, and they had a golem attack coming in. Because of the queen range, she's going to start attacking, and all the troops supporting this golem are going to go straight into the core, like Jake was saying. This is one of the downsides of having a centralized queen, or centralized heroes. A queen is a little bit more different because she has that range. She will sit behind a wall and draw them in, whereas the king will go out to the units and not necessarily pull the troops into the core, but they have that fashion. It's a lot similar to when we were talking about a Town Hall 8 and placing a centralized clan castle, having those troops pull you in.
Yeah.
The other placement for a hero is outside of the core. And one of the benefits of outside of the core is, one, they're not going to pull the troops in. But the other thing to think about is, say someone was funneling their troops into the core and they did not attack from the hero side. So the attack did not come from this side, but it came from this side. Mm-hmm. One of the upsides of having a non-centralized queen is when they funnel troops into the core, the queen could actually pull troops away while these defenses are not being taken out, because the troops are so focused on attacking that queen that they're distracted while those defenses are hammering in on the troops.
Absolutely, that's a good point. If they're coming in from this side, just like you talked about, from this direction, they make their way into the core, and all of a sudden, they get in the queen's range. She's going to engage them, and then all this DPS, all this here, is firing in on them. You might even have this mortar shooting in on them. It's just a ton of DPS while they're focusing on that, and then they've walked right by it. Maybe from there, the king actually aggroes in, that completely pulls them out of this core. Whatever troops are here, they're banging on this wall trying to get to the king and queen. All the while, this massive amount of DPS that you've got surrounding your core banging away at them. So that's another way to use them. And you just got to be careful of how you set your base up. Make sure you know what a likely entryway is and if that's beneficial to you.
Yeah, and you're totally right. One of the downsides of not having the king and the queen in the core is, of course, if the attacker decides to attack where the heroes are. So if an attack were to come in this direction, the king is heavily exposed. They'll fight the king outside of these walls. The queen, reason why she's hidden inside is to hopefully, once troops get in range, she's going to be behind this wall firing on their troops.
Yeah.
And this is actually my second account, and I set up the heroes in this manner just so I can utilize this giant bomb. One of the nice things that you can use with the king and the queen is to use that aggro and use it to your advantage. If the golem, go wee wee, or go wipe attack come in, the first thing that the golem is going to lock onto is this cannon. Once they deploy their wizards behind here, this king is going to start banging on that golem. And what happens is these wizards want to defend that golem, so they'll run into that king and kill him out. And once they run into that range, this queen is going to pull them in further. So after they kill that king, they're going to run into this wall and try to break down this wall if the wall breakers haven't already been deployed, and try to attack this queen. And that's when this giant bomb goes off and boom, kills a huge set of wizards.
Yeah, and another point there is that if people are coming in from this side, I would say 90% of the time there's going to be a rage dropper right there, and all that's going to do is propel those DPS troops into that bomb. So I think that's a nice tricky placement next to your heroes like that. So like Rex was saying, just make sure that you give some thought to where your king and queen are. There's upsides and downsides to both of them. Like he said, obviously the downside to having them closer to the outside is they're exposed. It's easier for DPS to get to them, to gang up on them and take them out, but you can use that to your advantage as well.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and move on to the next thing. We were talking about these traps. The upside, as we're talking about this giant bomb, is uh, one of the things you want to make sure is not to have a giant bomb in a path where a golem will walk, because golems are pretty much they're not unaffected by giant bombs, but there's minimum damage that are impacted by them. So what'll happen is once this golem is attacking here, where's the next place that he's going to go? They're going to actually deploy wall breakers, and the wall breakers are going to either go for that wall or this wall. And once they break open those walls, this golem is either going to go this direction or this direction. So this giant bomb is not triggered. And that's kind of why that giant bomb is placed in that location.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I see a lot of times people will put those giant bombs, in the direct path. The golem's got to go there, and like you said, it's just not going to hurt him that much. Yeah, it does the damage to him, but he's got more than enough hit points to sustain it. So yeah, that's a good point. That segues into our talking about traps. We're not going to rehash everything that we talked about in Town Hall 8 as far as spring traps. All that stuff still plays, guys. Remember, we're building on what we talked about at the Town Hall 8 video. But you've got one extra giant bomb. So how do you feel? How would you use that, Rex?
Yeah, so there's actually a couple different options. There's one, and this is my favorite option, is to have two different double giant bomb sets. And that's just because as a war clan, and when we face war clans, you're heavily attacked by either hogs or like really strong armies with 3-star capabilities. And each of those 3-star capabilities requires some form of defense targeting troops like hogs or loons.
Yeah.
Go Wipe and Go Weeby are able to 3-star most bases, but if you have enough compartments, it's damn near impossible unless they have impeccable wall breaker deployment and destroy each wall segment at the perfect time. So what'll happen is people have evolved into more difficult and more sophisticated, even more customized army compositions, and that's where Go Low Wee Wee comes out, Go Ho Wee Wee comes out, and so it's just really difficult to straight up hog when there's possibilities of two double giant bomb sets.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think if you face a good war clan to where you're worried about the attacks that are you're worried about every star, you're gonna see some hog attacks. I mean, it's just gonna happen. Hogs are still viable in that way. They get a lot of 3 stars when done properly. But if you have two double giant bomb sets, that's one of the big differences from Town Hall 8 and Town Hall 9. It, and you place them correctly, it can be hard to sniff those out. It can be hard to guess where they're at, and even if you know where they're at, it just takes a lot of troop space, a lot of commitment to try to get them triggered, or especially to try to path your hogs around them. So I agree with you. I like doing two double giant bomb sets, but you can also do it how you've done it on your second account here and do a single double giant bomb set is mandatory. If you've got all 4 bombs spread out over your base, a good hogger can 3-star you, period, the end. So having at least one double set, in my opinion, is mandatory, but you can do it like this with the other 2 and spread them out. That's effective against some other compositions as well.
Yeah, and so one of the reasons why I opted to have this composition is because I know most war clans will see the amount of 2x4 spaces on this base. There's one here. There's one, like there's any possibility here since there's a 2x6 space there. Mm-hmm. There's one here, and then there's another one here. So it's really difficult to path, like you were saying, hogs around unless they're just an expert hogger. And even if they are, it's very difficult to do to make sure just nothing goes wrong, because just when you start raiding, things don't go the way you plan them at all times. Yep. So what happens is not always this base will be hogged. The other composition that attacks this type of base is a Go Wipe or a Go Wee Wee or some form of that. And so that's why the two single bombs kind of shine, because you can place those single bombs in a path, like we mentioned this one, but this top one, let's say there's a go wipe or a go booby attack from the top. They're probably going to do some kind of split like this and have their golems attack in this direction. This first golem is going to hit this archer tower and move on to this next wizard tower and move on to this. Whereas this second golem will probably open this wall and move in some form of this direction, and something like that will happen. When they deploy their witches and wizards in the back, these things, they always just push down. Yeah, you're going to see some move down the side, but they almost always push down. What will happen is, after they clear these defenses, the wizards and the witches will go into this little crevice. And I've seen this happen a number of times on attacks on this base. The wizards and witches will clump because there's a rage here. They want to get into that core as soon as they can. So everything will clump, run into this little crevice to attack these expos and this town hall, and boom, there goes all the wizards and witches.
Yeah, I really like that top bomb. I like the way you've set it up. Like you just mentioned, there's almost no possibility of a golem going into that compartment where the giant bomb is. And so if it's going to get set off, it's going to get set off by the witches and wizards. Now, your skeletons could run in there, but nothing you can do about that. And like you said, if they are raged, they're going to kill those point defenses in that wizard tower really quick. And then they're heading there because that's the closest place for them to stand to start attacking the next targets, the town hall or the expos. So I really like the placement there. I think that's done well.
Thank you, Jade. Let's moving on to the next. Actually, I just want to reiterate first what Jake was saying about the 4 single giant bomb placements. This I have seen done. Yes, it is possible, but only when you have a max Town Hall 9 and very high hero levels. If you don't have those very high hero levels, there's actually a third option, third requirement as well, and that's high level walls.
Yeah.
So if you want to split up your 4 giant bombs, you need to have all 3 things: high level heroes, high level walls, and a completely max defense Town Hall 9.
Yeah, it can work. I've seen it done. We have run into a base that had spread out bombs, all single bombs that we did struggle with. But like you said, everything was maxed, high level heroes. And the reason it works is because unless you can trigger the bombs before the raid started, or at least some of them, you've only got 4 heal spells at Town Hall 9. So you have to commit those 4 heal spells to each one of those giant bombs locations. But the placement has to be spot on. There can't be any way to pre-trigger them. Otherwise, you're going to be toast to hogs. But if you place them just right to where the hogs have to path over them, and you know that they're going to have to use their 4 heals there, and you've got maxed defensive buildings and a high-level hero count, then the hogs just can't sustain it because you're controlling where the heal spells go. So it can be done, but again, that's for very, very high-level Town Hall 9 play, in my opinion.
So one of the last traps that we need to mention, and it's our newest trap, and that's our skeleton trap. At Town Hall 9, you only get 2 of these, and they can be upgraded to level 3. And at level 3, I believe they bring out 4 skeletons each.
Yep.
And these traps have just, oh man, it took a little while to get us to adjust to these because they are just really freaking annoying when you're trying to attack with a go wipe or anything that has a long attack time. And that's just because there's 4 little skeletons. Whatever your troops are doing, if a skeleton attacks anything, I think Supercell kind of messed up here. The aggro range is way too large. You could have troops attacking here, and a skeleton will hit something over here. All these troops will start aggroing over here. So it's a little bit weird with the mechanics of the game at this point. But they still are a really annoying thing because I like to place skeletons in the core. You can have a couple of options, putting them outside or inside. What are your thoughts about that, Jake?
Yeah, this is sort of goes opposite of what Town Hall 8. At Town Hall 8, we talked about setting them in the core and having them on set to air. In Town Hall 9, I think the core, again, is probably the spot for them, but having them set to ground, 2 reasons. Like you said, on a go wipe attack, I've shown it on some of the replays. These things can take sometimes 2, 3 swings from multiple pekkas, and if you have multiple pekkas stopping and taking the time to swing 2 or 3 times, you have just delayed a massive amount of damage to your base, to some defensive building, to some building that they would be attacking. It's devastating to them. The other thing I've seen it really hurt is hog raids. It's not a big deal when they're chasing your hogs around and you've got them under a heal spell. I mean, they don't do a ton of damage. So as long as you're under heal, they're okay. But when you're not under heal and they're running around pecking at your hogs, every hog you lose is a pretty big deal. And I've seen it mess people up towards the end of their raid. They've deployed all their heal spells, and you've got, like you said, at this level, you've got 8 skeletons running around banging on your hogs while they're trying to clean up the last few defensive buildings. It can be a game changer. So, yeah, I put them in the core, and I put them on ground at Town Hall 9.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think maybe only at the beginning Town Hall, lower level Town Hall 9s, you might consider putting them on air. But I wholeheartedly agree with you that you need to put them on ground. It could be a little bit argued whether to put them in the core or outside of the core to draw troops out. And this goes back to what we were discussing with the heroes. I also agree with you and prefer to put them in the core to waste those P.E.K.K.A swipes. Just to talk about the mechanics of this game. Say you have 4 troops clumped up right here, and this is one thing you can think about when you're trying to attack a base and think about killing off their CC troops. If they have a bunch of troops, usually it's a bunch of archers clumped up, and you deploy archers over here, all of these archers will attack the same archer.
Yeah.
And that's why a wizard is effective, is they can splash it down, but all of these archers will attack one archer. The same thing goes for the P.E.K.K.As. If these skeletons come out and attack a P.E.K.K.A, all 8 skeletons are in the same area. So all the P.E.K.K.As you have here are going to swipe at the same skeleton. They'll swipe at the next skeleton. They'll swipe at the next skeleton. And that's why it's so wasteful, because every single P.E.K.K.A is swiping at the same skeleton and not different ones.
Yeah, and if you don't have some other troops to, like you said, splash damage, and hypothetically, like you said, if these are in the core where you've got them placed here, you have a go wipe come in, and these we'll pull up the radius there of these little traps, and these P.E.K.K.As make the core. You've busted in, and they're standing here. All of a sudden, they're sitting there swiping at those skeletons, and if they're close enough, at least 2 of these Teslas are going to be just drilling on them. While they take the time to swipe each one of those, it can be a big deal. We've seen it be a big deal. So that's my preference there. But like you said, it goes both ways. You can put them over here to the side, and if you've got a golem attack coming here, and all of a sudden your 12 skeletons pop here, it draws all their troops away from your core. So it can work both ways. It's just a matter of preference, and think about it as you're designing your base. How when you lay it out, which way you're going to go and how you want it to work.
Yeah, and I agree. It's placing them outside of the core, somewhere on the outskirts of your base, is a risk that you're willing to take. It's like what we talked about in our Town Hall 8 video, where you place certain bombs outside of your base versus inside. Yeah. In the core, you know they're going to be activated. You know the troops are going to defend, those skeletons are going to defend your base. Whereas, yeah, if you put them on the outside, you don't know which direction they're going to be attacked from unless you know the weak spots of your base. And that kind of goes back to one of the main thoughts of this base building exercise, is not to just throw away your base, but to continually use it, tweak it, and adjust it after every attack and after every award. Kind of see where people are judging your weaknesses are.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Let's move on then, talking about that, to our next, the next number on your list there, the key elements. And this is we got a lot to cover here, because this is sort of where the meat, if this is a meal, this is the meat to me of what things you've got to do to make your base stand up.
Yeah. So we've already talked about one of the most important key elements, and that's the double giant bombs. Like we were saying, I prefer to have 2 double giant bomb sets. You can go in with 1, but it is very crucial to have at least 1 double giant bomb set.
Yep.
That way you can have some kind of protection against hog attacks.
Yep.
So the second key element is to have a good number of partitions in your base or compartments so that you can fend off from the most common attacks, and that's going to be go wee wee and go wipe.
Yeah, I agree. I think we've seen it so many times. People they come in with a golem attack, go wee wee, go wipe. They make it to the core, they've rushed the core, and then all of a sudden, boom, they're in the core, and they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 compartments left, no wall breakers left. Those troops have to bust through each one of those compartments to get to your remaining defensive buildings, and they just don't have the lasting power for it. So don't make a base with 3 huge compartments, and that holds everything. That's too easy. It's too easy for troops to, once they get in there, they can just run wild. Make it compartmentalized, bust it up, and make it uneven compartments like Rex has done here. That distracts wall breakers. It makes them hard to control where they're going to go. So give them some jagged walls, uneven layers. It just makes it much more difficult for golem attacks.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Jake. Let's just count the number of compartments in this base. You've got 1 here. So let's use numbers. You got 1 here, you got 2 here, you got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And I like to count the outside as a compartment.
Yeah.
It's a huge compartment, but that's 14 different compartments that they have to consider.
Yep.
And that's just a lot of wall breakers or a lot of jump spells.
Yeah.
In our Go, like if you have been following our videos, you can see one of the key army compositions is Go Wee Wee, and where Go Wee Wee really shines is when there's no compartment bases. So you see bases with a core, and then you see another layer of walls, and then you see another layer of walls.
Yeah.
Something that looks kind of like this. And this base is really easy to attack, almost regardless of what army composition is, because troops are free to run around in all directions. And if you just get a good golem split, it'll protect all of their killing troops.
Yeah, exactly. And it almost also eliminates another one of the key elements we're going to talk about is your wall level. If you got a base design like that, you can have lava walls. It doesn't matter. They've only got to bust through in 3 points. They can do, obviously, the outside easily with wall breakers, and then maybe just bring 1 jump spell, and then they're in your core. I mean, so it's such a it takes away so much of your defensive capabilities. Having those compartments, I've seen Hulk talk about it in some of his videos. If you've got this archer tower here, okay, and there's ground troops trying to get to it. This archer tower has 750 hit points, but really, it's got more than that. It's got an extra 3,000 hit points because they have to bust that wall to get to it. So you are, in essence, now some troops obviously can shoot over the walls, but not all of them can. You are, in essence, increasing the hit points of your defensive buildings by placing them in separate compartments, making those troops go through there.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jake. You have to make sure, and that's one of the key things that you have to make sure to do is to level up those walls, increase the hit points of all your defenses. And the more compartments there are, even if they have to use a jump spell, that's 1 less spell that they have available for use. And this base has a weak spot right here. They could jump spell into a bunch of different compartments, but that still requires a good use of spells. And at Town Hall 9, you only get 4 of those. So the more compartments that you have, the more uneven they are, and the better they're segmented. It's just going to be helpful for all your defense.
Yeah, I agree. And like you just said, if you can make someone use a jump spell, they're probably for this base, they're going to have to bring wall breakers and a jump spell. Now you're using army space. You're forcing them to use army space and take up one of their spells. They've only got 3 left. It can make a big difference. In the sake of time, let's move on to what I would say is our last key element. And I don't think there's much to say about it. We've already said it in Town Hall 8. But don't forget about it. Air defenses. If you clump them in the core, someone that knows what they're doing will do the exact same attack you can do at Town Hall 8. They'll funnel the lynch to the core. They'll drop a rage on them. You'll have no air defense left, and they will wipe your base out.
Yeah, I agree with you. One of the other options that you get at Town Hall 9, and if they have poor air defenses, is the very fun attack called Holo Wee Wee, where you use hog saloons and wizards and witches.
Yeah, great point.
And if you have let's just say there are 4 air defenses in the core here, and you have like your general ring structure of defenses on the outside. Each of these defenses on the outside can be looned with a single or maybe even two loons. And so that's where Holuiwi shines, and you need to make sure you have very good air coverage like I do here.
Yeah.
And good coverage, we kind of spoke about it in Town Hall 8, the Town Hall 8 video, but just to briefly restate it, make them not exposed, where they cannot just snipe out the air defenses with an Archer Queen or with a few hogs. Make them have to invest a ton of troops to try to attack that air defense.
Yep. I think I couldn't say it better, man. Any other key elements before we move on to our last topic?
No, let's. I think that's all the key elements in Town Hall 9. So just to re-summarize, it's the double giant bomb sets, it's the walls and the compartmentalization, and then it's the air defenses.
Yep.
So let's move on to our next topic. That's the clan castle.
Yeah, it's it's sort of the same as Town Hall 8, but you've got more walls, you've got more defensive buildings. It's easier to make a difficult lure clan castle at Town Hall 9 than it is Town Hall 8. So I think you're going to see a lot more, and you can get a lot more creative with it. You can make it really hard on people to get to your clan castle at Town Hall 9.
Yeah, and I agree with you. You can start, because you have those extra fences, and all of the defenses have become such a big, powerful force. You can have the luxury of using traps a little bit differently, and using traps to block lures. You can start. You can use one Tesla. I don't like using more than one Tesla to have a lure block. But even after that Tesla, you can put some springs to mess it up. One of the easiest ways to get a 3-star is to have an easy lure. And so I would not recommend putting a clan castle where they can use barbs to just lure out that clan castle. It just gives them so much more troop space. And it's really, like, people the clan wars has been out for so long. People are very good and effective at cleaning up the enemy clan castle troops.
Mm-hmm.
But the other component that goes with the clan castle is the troops that you can put inside them. One of the nice things about Town Hall 9 is you have 30 troop space now. And that's a lot more significant than the 25 you had at Town Hall 8. So you have a lot of variety that you can put in.
You do.
What kind of troops would you load your clan castle in?
Well, I think you do have a lot more variety. You've got that 5 troop base is big. To me, the rules really don't change, though. If I'm going to make my clan castle difficult to lure, it's just going to make it that much harder on them, because I'm going to load it up with 5 extra archers. There's going to be, maybe 20 archers, 21 archers, and a wizard in there. And, man, it takes a lot of effort and time to empty that clan castle. They've really got to penetrate your base if you set it up correctly. If you have one that maybe they just have to kill one or a defensive building and they're there, not just a super hard one, then again, the same thing plays. Throw some witches in there, wizard, something like that that's got some power to it.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with you more again. The other option that I really like to put in the clan castle is Valkyries.
Yeah.
A lot of people are not used to the amount of buff that the Valkyrie has received, so they're not accustomed to attacking the Valkyrie and how to quickly dispose of it. They'll waste a lot of wizards. They'll accidentally, because they don't know how to take out the Valkyrie, they'll waste a lot of wizards in one spot, and the Valkyrie will do one spin and take them all out. I've seen Valkyries ruin their raids as well.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I'm just a fan of mixing it up. I mean, don't be so predictable. We go up against clans, and it's like once you see what's in one person's clan castle, you know what's in all of them. Mix it up. Don't do the same thing that everyone in your clan does, because it does catch people off guard. They don't prepare for it. Now that's probably only going to last an attack or so, but I've seen people lately even throw a lava hound in there, and it just messes people up. They're just not ready for it. They're not prepared. They don't know exactly how to take it down because they haven't seen it before. So don't be scared to get creative in your clan castle, because like Rex said, people have gotten really good at dispatching those common clan castle troops. So don't be scared to mix it up. Throw something different in there. Catch someone off guard.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jake. I personally like to put a few minions, a few archers, a few barbs, like a Valkyrie and a witch in my clan castle, just to have a huge different mixture of troops. The nice thing about doing something with a different targeting, not only just having both air and ground targeting, is if you have some ground only targeting troops, those troops don't evacuate that clan castle unless a ground troop goes into your range. So I've seen people lure with loons or loons and minions, but then they fail to get the complete lure because they don't know that there's Valkyries and Barbs in there, and then they start dispatching their troops, and boom, the Valkyries pop out and the Barbs pop out and start killing off the golems, and they're like, what the heck? They weren't expecting it.
Yeah, great point, man. And we've seen it happen. And like you said, Rex even likes to throw a goblin in there because speed difference. You see people struggle sometimes with that witch. She's so slow. And so to have troops that have greatly different speeds of running to whatever they're dropping can also throw people off. That goblin will run out there and it'll take out an archer that's anchored on a building. I mean, it'll run out there quickly, jump on her, a swipe or two, and she's down. So just different things can really throw people off. And once someone gets on tilt, they start a raid, it doesn't, the clan castle lure and kill does not go as planned. I mean, I've seen it a million times. It goes downhill from there.
Yeah, and that's one of the nice things about Town Hall 9 is you just have so many new options, and that's why it takes so long to upgrade Town Hall 9. So play around with your clan castle troops, especially if your clan is a little bit open to all these different ideas.
Yeah, good point. And like you said, Town Hall 9 is such a growth process. To me, it's when you really develop into a high level, you can develop into a high level player in the game, and your base can develop into a real tough asset for your clan. It can be very hard to 3-star. Sometimes even for a Town Hall 10, they've still got to know what they're doing. But there's a huge change. There's so many upgrades. And before we get off of this, Rex, I want to mention one thing that we didn't put on our list, and that's the Teslas. Level 7 Teslas, man, so powerful. You can get them up there. People just don't realize how powerful 4 level 7 Teslas bunched up like that are. To me, the same rules applies. We talked about it at Town Hall 8. If you're upgrading them and they're low level, I would use them as traps. But when you get them maxed, man, there's nothing like watching them 4 Teslas pop up and just cooking some attacking troops for you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. That's a great point. I love to have 4 Teslas in the core because they shell out so much DPS, especially if they're trying to hog your base. At times, if you have 4 max Teslas, you have both level 3 expos, those 6 buildings together are shelling out so much damage that they can almost take out hogs even through a heal spell. And so if they want to make sure those hogs survive, they have to either drop double heal spells or just sacrifice a few hogs, knowing that there's nothing they can do about it.
Yeah, exactly. Hawk, who we all know is a YouTuber and is a great hog attacker, a lot of hog compositions. He almost plans on 2 heals. When he sees those 4 max Teslas, I mean, and if you can make someone burn 2 heals right there, that can be a big deal too, especially if all your point defenses are upgraded. So just remember that. I wanted to mention it before we moved on. Same rules apply. If they're low level, bunching them up is probably not the thing to do. Use them as traps, use them to throw off golems, things like that. But if they're max, man, just trust me when I tell you, bunching them up is a powerful tool. Well, guys, I hope y'all enjoyed this. Again, before we go, do not copy Rex's base here. Be creative. Take these tips. Take these key elements that every good base has in common and design your own base. Make it something they've never seen before. I promise you, you'll have better and more defenses. Rex, anything else to add before we go, man?
No, you're totally right. If you use a foreign base, they are going to know where the spots are. Make them scout out your base. Make them invest some time to figuring out where they think your traps are, and then do something unexpected. So I think that's the best way, and where we see the most Town Hall 9 defenses come into play. It's just when there's something unexpected, and when we require all of our members to design an original base. They're not able to go out and go find a foreign base because it's just way too common, it's way too easy, and any good war clan is going to know how to attack that base.
Yep, I agree. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed the Town Hall 9. Town Hall 10 will be coming next. And it'll wrap up this mini-series. We're having fun making them. Hope you guys are enjoying them. Until then, Jake and Rex from One Hive, doing our best to help you guys suck less.